Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining. Today, we're breaking down the challenges of managing a site in Shopify and how you can quickly and effectively modernize it. I'm Darcy Terrell, Product Marketing Manager at ButterCMS, and today I'm joined by Chris Ching, CEO and founder of Electric Enjin. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Darcy.
It's good to be with you on this conversation. To start us off, could you tell us a little bit about Electric Enjin? I think you're about around your 10-year mark, and I'm really curious about what that journey has been like for you.
It's been long. We are an e-commerce agency, so we focus on improving conversion rates for DTC brands on Shopify and BigCommerce. And we also create custom solutions as software. We have a couple of our own products in the mix, mainly AI powered, that are all revolving around conversion rate optimization.
One of the things I am appreciating about talking with you for this conversation is that not only do you serve customers and clients who are ranging from small to medium and larger size e-commerce stores, but you are one of them. And as part of our work together, you spun up a brand new store, didn't you?
Yeah, surprisingly very quick too. So just a few months ago, we had launched a storefront. Part of it was to allow us to test some of our apps that we build specifically for Shopify. And then the other part was that we just wanted to really dabble in e-commerce, because essentially that's what we help our clients do. So we wanted to take a stab at it ourselves. So we came up with a product of custom dog figurines, and then we have some things like dog apparel that allows customers to upload their photos and then get a custom figurine. And they can do that whole approval process through the website. And we essentially, launched it with a theme. It was very basic. And when we were engaged with you to relaunch that on Butter, it surprisingly went so quick. I just expected to make a landing page connection, but ended up building the entire experience in just a few hours. So it was pretty incredible what you can do with ButterCMS.
That is incredible. I'm going to ask you to repeat something you said when we talked yesterday. In the past, it might take something like 100 days for you to build a site, but with Butter, did I just hear you say you were able to do that in just a few hours?
Yeah. So we'd always tell our clients 100 days. It is, especially when you're building something custom from the ground up and you go through, stakeholders that want to see the design, they have input. So you go through a lot of rounds, and then the development of that process, because it is custom. And of course we use more AI and things like that now, but just over a year ago, it was probably 100 days. And, even if you were to build like a traditional theme and work within Shopify, that is still cumbersome. But now it's kind of flipped on its head, where if you're working with an API powered CMS like Butter, you can connect all that and generate an entire site just through prompts. So I was able to create the whole homepage, product page, collection pages, blog, even things that would traditionally be powered by apps like reviews, CRM, the custom backend for customers to approve and review renders was all done with AI. And I was able to just essentially migrate the entire store to ButterCMS. It's completely headless and super fast in terms of page speed. So yeah, that surprised me. I didn't think I was going to do the whole thing in a few hours. I expected at least like a week to get it over.
Love that was a good surprise with ButterCMS. Can you show it to us?
I sure can. So not only did I migrate the website, I did a little bit of a redesign, just because you can play around with it so easily within AI. And I specifically use Lovable to connect the Shopify storefront. So all the products are powered in Shopify, but all the content that you see here, like on the homepage, the story, the blog, facts, everything throughout is powered by ButterCMS. And, I actually haven't really worked within Butter myself. My team of developers and designers are, more familiar with going in there and creating systems and content models. So for me to go in there and create content for that without any experience, only took a few minutes to really ramp up and get going, which was another, nice surprise and delight. So here's the homepage. We have our main sort of hero and call to action. This is a custom figurine, so you would, upload photos. It is a little more of a process than just placing an order and receiving it. You have to go through a round of feedback with the customer. So we do explain a little bit about that, just some of the reasons why you would want to work with That's My Pup. But the process gets started essentially. Here's actually a render of the model. You can upload a photo here and start the process there. There's just some of the products cards that quickly pulled in from Shopify, so everything connects from your reviews to your variants. If I were to pick something like a product, I get all of my variant sizes and everything here. Going back to how it works, so just generate these with ButterCMS components. This is a pre-made component that you provide the 2-column image aside. So I'll use that throughout here. Even brought in some video, which is actually hosted on ButterCMS as well. And the great thing with Butter is that you have that API exporter, so I can just go back to Lovable, copy and paste the API data structure, and it knows exactly how to render the content. So that's something that would be a lot more complex just doing within a native theme, which is, complete opposite of how it was before. Working with headless prior to this, you would need development and understanding of code and React and things like that. Developed our own review system, so everything is moderated on the back end. We don't have to have things like app bloat, which is another great feature of working with ButterCMS. And yeah, so that's pretty much the homepage. We have all our sort of secondary pages. I hate showing my photos here, but our blog, which again is all powered by ButterCMS. I have facts. Customers want to look into these things. Again, this was all just made with a repeater component in the ButterCMS system, something I've never worked with before. And it's so easy to jump right in. That's what I love about it. That's the beauty of working with ButterCMS. So yeah, that's a quick overview of the website.
Thanks for that. It's great to hear how intuitive it was for you as a first-time user and the robustness of the site that you were able to migrate and really, would you say you migrated it or really just rebuilt it?
Both, so I took the content. The content for products was already living in Shopify, so I didn't have to do anything there. But I took the existing content that was on the back end of Shopify, like the blog, the secondary pages, and then I recreated those as components in ButterCMS. And then just exported the API schema, passed that off to Lovable, and within minutes, it structured all my content on the front end.
It's incredible. So you're really allowing Shopify to do all the things that it does best with your cart and the purchase experience, but you were really able to migrate all of, your other content, your blogs, all the other components just really quickly and easily with Butter.
Yeah, super easy. Even the cart and the account was all generated, super fast, and it does go to the Shopify checkout. But again, everything, being powered by Butter is just super simple to connect the dots with an AI prompt tool.
This, I think as our conversation has evolved and your experience of, really upgrading this site, this could work for everybody, right? This could work for someone who's coming from their idea phase, or a really established small to medium-sized company doesn't have to be overly concerned about the risk of migration or fixing some of the rich content management problems that Shopify really isn't designed to cover. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think especially right now, with Black Friday coming up, there's a lot of code freezes and people are nervous to make changes, structural changes that could break things. And we would always have clients, if they did want to do a redesign, they would hold off and do that later on. They're focused on their landing pages and things like that. So with these content structures, I didn't really have a ton of content. So for me, I was just able to manually port it over. But if I did have a bigger one, there are tools out there that even AI can connect to, crawl your site, pull the data, and then just map out that same structure for you, easily on ButterCMS, and even tell you what components to use, what fields to use, etc. So if you are to go this route, I could just generate a landing page on the fly through prompts, have that content mapped out to ButterCMS, so my editors can go in there and they can manage the promotional offers and all the content that goes in there. And it just takes a huge load off your shoulders that you don't have to do any custom development. My background is designer and developer, but I didn't have to touch a piece of code here. I'm just copying, pasting things and prompting.
It's incredible. One of the things I wanted to go back to is page speed. So when, the content gets slowed down or there's app bloat, that really does affect page speed, which affects conversion, and buyers will drop off. Do you have anything, did you try a page speed test prior, or could we run one now, or?
We could run.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, even depending what you see on the page speed analysis, even just clicking around is super quick. You see everything loading. There's no stagnation of content, no things kind of flipping around. It's all super instant. And that's what the customer experiences. It doesn't matter what they get on the page speed score, because it's just how it renders for you. Everything's there and it's API powered, versus, a traditional theme. You're going to deal with that app bloat. You're going to deal with all those apps talking to each other. Things are going to load in. You're going to see them loading in. And especially on a mobile device, it's going to be even more noticeable. So I don't have any apps connected to this. This is just ButterCMS and Shopify. We can run a page speed test right now. So yeah, here is a page speed score on the home page. And the main thing you want to look at is the speed index, 1 second, which is super fast. And the cumulative layout shift, 0.001. You will not see that on any Shopify storefront. So this is incredibly fast. And I wasn't really being mindful of image compression and things like that. I was kind of just taking things from the existing store and even from my own phone. So I didn't spend a whole lot of time on compressing. And like I mentioned, I have 3D models in there that are very huge, up to 30 or 40 megabytes, because they are very detailed. But the 1 second time is really incredible. I've seen times up to 30 or 40 seconds. That's not how long the site takes to load, but that means that is how long it takes for everything to load. That might be images, could be JS processing, but this is incredibly fast. Yeah, and you'll see some
great. It's so great to see that. So Chris, earlier you mentioned that the site was using native Shopify, and that for your blog, you definitely wanted to consider using ButterCMS for that content management. Could you take us through that decision process a little bit more?
Yeah, so I think what triggered that whole migration process, and the reason I wanted to switch was because this is just more or less a side project for us. So we don't have a lot of time to manage it. And being a web design agency, it's we just didn't have time to do a redesign internally. So we did start off with a theme, and then managing that internally, making changes to that just became cumbersome because you are sort of beholden to the theme's sort of rails and meta fields within products and things like that. So it's very structured within Shopify, and we wanted to break free from that and really include more robust features, not specifically from apps. So, we knew ButterCMS has an incredibly powerful blog feature, and that's primarily how we're going to drive, organic traffic to the website is through creating great content. And we just didn't really like the blog editor within Shopify. So we initially thought ButterCMS makes a lot of sense. But as we dug deeper into it, we wanted our product pages to be very unique and not just have the same structure for every single product, and our collection pages to be more unique and not be, having that. So every Shopify collection has the same sort of URL structure. We wanted to break free from that as well, because that helps SEO. So we wanted to come in from every angle in terms of metrics to improve the storefront, get organic traffic, get the conversion up. So it just started from the blog, but then we decided the whole thing made sense to bring over to ButterCMS. And because we could control the design, the content, and everything from an AI sort of approach, it just allowed us to be more nimble. If you asked me like 5 years ago, it's something I never would have considered because, before then you would have to do everything from the ground up development. But now with all the tools you have available to you, you can make that migration super fast. You can have full control of your content, especially with the power of the components within ButterCMS. And then I can make my own components very fast on the fly. So it just allowed us to have a really engaging website and break free from the themes that you see every single Shopify storefront using.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we really have designed and want ButterCMS to be ultimately flexible for our customers to use and be able to house the content in a way that makes it incredibly easy for them to control and deploy to really any digital device or through any channel. So it's great to hear that, that was, we were able to help you do that.
We always tell our clients that we try to build websites so that they don't actually need us to go in there and custom code everything. They should have full control of their content. So that's, I think the beauty of ButterCMS is once you have that structure made, they no longer need us. They can use components, drag and drop things around, create new landing pages on the fly. So they have total control of that. That's what's, really great about ButterCMS.
Yeah. And, sometimes we find that the word headless is not intuitive or makes a lot of sense. But, what you're describing is the ability for Butter to hold all your text and images and content and really separate it from the experience your customer has and everything they see on the display or the front end in a way that doesn't have customers locked into a particular platform or system, but they really get that flexibility with ButterCMS.
Yeah, it's just like your CRM, right? Like you wouldn't manage your email system from within Shopify. You would use the tool that is best for managing email blasts. So it's the same concept for ButterCMS. I want a platform that's going to be super easy to work with, allows me to use any structure I want for content. And because it is decoupled, the front end is separate from the back end. I have total control. I don't have to follow that Shopify structure, in terms of how they want you to create your content and how your URLs are going to follow a certain structure. You have that total flexibility if your content is housed in ButterCMS.
That's great. We might have some construction in the background.
Yeah, I'm sorry. They're building a deck out there.
Oh my God.
And he happens to be just hammering right there.
That's great. Listen, I kind of wanted to turn our attention to, I'm so excited what the combination of Electric Enjin and ButterCMS and Shopify and our good friend AI can do. Let's talk a little bit more about maintenance from two angles. One solutions a lot of the e-commerce stores are doing are just trying to spin up apps just to even run like a quick promo or other ways that Shopify isn't really quite handling their rich content the way they need it to. And that also causes maintenance and performance problems down the line.
A lot of times we'll get approached with how can we get rid of this app bloat? Because again, they are using apps for every single feature in terms of like free ship bars, carts, reviews. It's all over the place. I've seen on average probably like 20 or 30 apps installed on Shopify stores. So when you're relying on that many apps, it is going to hinder your page speed. And Shopify, they at least do a good job of policing apps and making sure that they aren't, they do have to hit certain performance metrics. But again, when you're loading that many apps in the store, you mentioned earlier, like how does that impact conversion rate? Well, it impacts it pretty significantly because if I have a bad experience in the store, things are taking a while to load, things are moving around, like the cumulative shift layout, then that's going to impact my experience. And I might either leave the store and look elsewhere, or I might just get frustrated. So it is a direct correlation with the conversion rate. We see that all the time. The faster the site is, the more or the higher your conversion rate is going to be. There's a lot of studies on that. Google has their own studies as well. Also, page speed impacts your SEO because Google doesn't want to send you to, a lousy experience. So they do prioritize sites that load faster. They know how it loads because they can scan it, they can crawl it, they understand it, they know the structure of it. And if it's rendering super fast, they are going to rank that higher. So it does hit like so many different areas in terms of your KPIs, your performance, and the maintenance with at least, using something like with ButterCMS. And again, like I've reduced everything down to just 2 APIs, Shopify and ButterCMS. So I'm lowering my cost and I'm lowering the tech debt of having to manage all these apps and really being micro sort of, I guess, fragmented across. I have everything in all these different locations. I have to manage everything from a different login. And now I can do it all just from one place. So it is really helpful, again, to have like the content where it matters the most in ButterCMS, and then the products, what Shopify does best is helping you with that fulfillment and product management.
So Chris, you built this experience using Lovable, and there are a lot of AI tools out there. Are there any limitations to using solely a tool like Lovable for this?
Yeah, so that's a good point with especially the CMS, and I do have experience with trying to create a CMS within Lovable to power another site. And I think one issue that I always come up with is like, it's only one prompt away from destroying and taking down the whole structure. So if you do have your content housed within, like ButterCMS, you do have those safeguards in place. You do have structure in place. You know what you're working with. It's not going to get changed or affected. And you also have that security as well. That's always a big thing. So especially when you're making an AI prompted website, there's always security vulnerabilities, and it is getting better and improving. But especially Lovable, I've seen it come a long way in terms of that. But I would never want to house my content in a custom created CMS, because it could just all take the entire site down real quick. So you do want to have some structure there, and it's important to maintain that and make sure that people have access to that and they are familiar with it, because again, it could be one prompt that changes the entire way that you end up, managing that content, and now you're not familiar with that structure anymore. So I like that consistency for me, especially maintaining that in ButterCMS makes it really helpful. My team is more familiar with it. So if we're managing the website all together, it's going to be pretty cookie cutter for them to go in there and make, landing pages on the fly and things like that.
That's great. So Chris, we hear that landing pages are one of the areas that companies really need to solve for, because if they're stuck with dev dependencies or just the inability to spin up quick landing pages, it can really inhibit campaign and product launches. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, the key thing with landing pages, right, is that it's always going to be a seamless funnel from your ad to the experience without sort of, pulling away from your main homepage and all that. So, the beauty of working with ButterCMS is that in at least how we structure our website and using AI is that we could just generate landing pages super fast on the fly. And just within minutes. And that allows me to not just create a beautiful landing page, but I can also test landing pages really fast. I can create different variants, and I can host all that content on ButterCMS, and my editors have access to make updates to the promotions and things like that. But within Shopify, if you are using a template, your landing page is probably going to end up looking like the rest of your website, and you want it to be a more unique, engaging experience and very connective to whatever promotion you're offering, like Black Friday or things like that. So it's an opportunity to have fun with it, create something unique. And, if you are using AI and things like that, you can break free from the Shopify template structure and make something that's super engaging, and you just are able to test it very fast, right? I can have at least 3 or 4 different variants. And if I do have a good amount of traffic coming in, I can segment those landing pages, make them specific to maybe like a meta ad versus a retargeting ad. So you can have that full sequence of a funnel, and have multiple landing pages created within just a few minutes. And if that was in Shopify, it would probably take my whole team a week or 2 to really create something compelling.
That's such a great point. And I just realized we're out of time for today. So thank you, Chris, so much for joining, and for everyone who's watching. And if you'd like to have a conversation about how we can help improve your store, fill out the form and we'll be in touch. See you next time.